So today we have a collection of changes and announcements from Blizzard for the beginning of this phase 4 of the Midnight Alpha. The three things worth talking about are the release of the beta of Midnight, the complete genocide and destruction of healer interrupts, and the continuous development of add-ons by Blizzard, with the in-game Blizzard's raid frames and party frames being added soon. So starting with the first one, because it's not certain, it's only speculation, which is the release of the beta of Midnight. The beta of Midnight is relevant because that's when players who bought the pre-order of the Heroic Deluxe Mega Special Golden Goose Edition also get access to the beta. So when the beta comes out is relevant for many players, and we have been given a while ago the roadmap of content of the alpha, and the roadmap of content was 5 phases happening. Now we know they have been happening within like 7 to 10 days apart, and now we just entered a couple of days ago, we just entered phase 4. So technically we have 7 to 10 days of phase 4 and then 7 to 10 days of phase 5. So if there is zero pause between the end of phase 5 and the beginning of the beta, then the beta of Midnight is out November the 5th or November the 12th. Considering the changes come on Wednesdays, on reset days, then that's when you would assume the Midnight beta was to come out. This was also reinforced by a tweet of Holly Longdale saying, "See you in game, beta soon." So that's also another point. We will have to see how early are we gonna get the beta of Midnight. Now, as for what's actually in game, as for what has actually already happened is real and tangible in game, first, the destruction of the interrupts. Now, as per the pruning, we have another layer of pruning that happened. Not just spells for your rotation, procs, healing increases to keep track of, stacks of buffs you wanted to look at. Now you also lose interrupts. And I guess the happiest one for this change are gonna be druids and shamans. Druids are happy because they were the first and only healer to be data mined for not having an interrupt. So they were expecting going into Midnight to be the only healer, besides the priest of course, to not have an interrupt anymore. Instead now they know that all the other healers have lost their interrupts as well. The other ones being happy are shamans, because shamans are keeping their interrupt. Windshear is staying as a healer interrupt, but it has been nerfed now to having a 30-second cooldown for the healer version of shaman. Now, the logic of Blizzard is like, it makes sense, but not for this. So the logic of Blizzard is, healing can be a stressful role when you must manage several things at once between your own healing abilities, your team's health, enemies' actions, mechanics, dodge, spread, stack, heal, look at the externals or the defensive of the players to see what you have to heal with, etc, etc. We feel that asking the healer to monitor the cast bars of things they don't have targeted while properly using their interrupts was asking too much. Now, where this loses a lot of logic is in the point of, we feel that asking the healer to monitor the cast bars of things they don't have targeted. So first, let's assume they don't have targeted is just a typo. They meant they don't have focused, like they're not looking at, they're not paying attention to, because obviously no healer targets players. You heal with mouse overs, with click casting on frames. You don't actually go and mouse click on the DK's head before healing them, you just click on the frame. So this part is probably just some typo. What's more relevant is, we feel that asking the healer to monitor the cast bars or just monitor what's happening to the players, this is already happening regardless if you were looking for an interrupt, right? It's not that I am looking at this mob who is about to cast the Fireball of Doom on my hunter because I care about interrupting that mob. I wanted to look at that mob's Fireball of Doom because I know the hunter needs to be given an external. I need to see if the hunter is planning on using a defensive for himself, or if I am a resto druid, I want to switch my life bloom and pre-put Reju down on that player, or if I want to put a discipline priest empowered shield on that player, because I know I am paying attention, I am monitoring the cast bars of things, and I see Fireball of Doom being cast. So even if I had no interrupt, like for example a discipline priest, even if I wasn't a healer spec with an interrupt, I was already paying attention to cast bars. So the idea that because healers are too stressful, they have tons of things to do, so we remove interrupting so they have more things to pay attention to, makes sense until you realize that what they mean is because then they don't have to monitor cast bars. You already want to monitor cast bars. You already want to monitor what enemies are casting on your players because you're supposed to heal them. So you need to know what's happening, which also comes in knowing what they're casting. So this explanation from Blizzard is weird in why they would want to remove interrupts from healers. I do even agree in the logic of getting rid of the interrupt itself so that healers can do other things, and also to put the pressure of not failing a mechanic away from healers, since generally speaking, if a DPS die, people already default in looking at the healer for a fault. At least now we know for certain that if a cast goes uninterrupted and someone dies, it's always going to be not the healer's fault. But besides that, it's a bit worrying that Blizzard would think of saying this, using this as an explanation as to why keeping interrupts for healers would be bad. I feel like they kind of missed the mark in the explanation. So they go on and continue saying that, of course, they are removing access to interrupts from all healers except Resto Shaman, because that was a more iconic, long-lasting spell, so they keep it for Shaman. And then they add the part about enemy behavior. With the removal of interrupt capabilities from healers, we are making an effort to change the behavior of enemies that use spells like Shoot or Frostbolt. We want enemies with these spells to more evenly spread their targeting to different players of the group, which should reduce cases where a single player might take a large spike of damage while others receive none. This is the largest problems in higher keys. Here comes my painting skills. The biggest, larger, fattest problems in higher keys was always the fact that you as a group had a collective HP without counting the tank at this collective HP, and as you kept scaling higher and higher, the random fireball, which you used to ignore in low keys because it just didn't do enough damage to threaten you, eventually in a +21 the random fireball does this, which means you die if you let it through. The very simple solution was to spread the damage. Now the fireball that is being spammed is no longer a fireball, but is rather something like a fire volley, which hits 2 players. So now this problem is gone, because now the fire volley in high keys, if it goes through, does this much damage. Same goes for pretty much any mechanic that's scaled out of control in high keys on a single target, creating this heavy one-shot problem in keys. The solution was to just spread the damage done, and then you no longer had the risk of one-shots being deadly. You still had the risk of multiple ones of these hits happening at once, killing players, but at least now the very frustrating thing about the single hits, giving healers no time to react, no time to do anything about, was gone. We will see, of course, if they will actually be able to make this work. Players are very skeptical at Blizzard's ability to make this work. This promise, the promise that don't worry, we are removing the interrupts from healers, we are also removing the ability for your nameplates and the ability to have weak auras to much more easily be able to track, stop and manage enemy spells, because we will do it for you. We will design dungeons to not have nearly as many casts, we will design dungeons to not have nearly as many super deadly one-shot mechanics. Just trust us. We are taking away your good nameplates, your good weak auras, your healer interrupts, and we will do it for you with our dungeon design. That's kind of what has gotten players spooked recently, trusting Blizzard that this will work, because obviously if it doesn't, you are screwed. You don't have add-ons to save you this time. You don't have anything to hide the mistakes of Blizzard this time, because there is no ability for add-ons to fix the problem. That's why it's so risky. The last point on the alpha phase 4 changes for Midnight is the UI. We had a video complaining about why is everything so late. If this is a major feature of this expansion, how do we have fully developed dungeons, fully developed zones, a full raid, tier sets are there, hundreds of different units, icons, weapon models, armor models have been already developed, and we still don't have the replacement of the add-ons. You feel like this would have been in the works for Blizzard for several months, right? That was the main complaint. And now we have gotten something, right? They have been pointing out in this set of blabber things we already know about, like the new, I guess, replacement for your boss mod that will come with Blizzard, and then the new, still awful by the way, replacement for your nameplates, and then now you have the raid frames. Blizzard here says we are adding a setting allowing players to choose from 3 different layouts for the information shown in each player frame. So it is the existing base layout, which is name top left, and then buffs bottom right, debuffs bottom left, and dispels top right will still be the default, and we are adding 2 additional configurations. So this is just basically the announcement that we now have the power to allow you to either show things like these, or put these top, then this one in the middle, and then the debuffs, like the dispels, put in them here. And you have only 3 options, 3 pre-formatted unchangeable options like this. And then for the dispels, we are making them bolder on the frame so they are easier to notice, along with color border visualization like this one. Green for poison with the poison debuff tracker. So this is of course still shit. Also, in case you're wondering, this is not actually in game. This is it's a mock-up. It's a drawing. It's a painting. This is not actually currently existing in the alpha. You can see already by yourself how terrible this is. You have no still. The problem that this is the same of the nameplates and of your cooldown manager. As long as there is no whitelist and blacklist, as long as you don't give the players the individual power to say, I don't give a shit about wild growth, because it lasts for like 8 seconds, I know when I cast it, it's obvious, I don't want to see it. As long as you don't have the option to do this, or like Trunk, I am literally channeling Trunk. I know what's happening. I don't need to see the Trunk icon on players, right? As long as you don't have the ability to do this, it will always be terrible. Same goes for things like the debuffs. You have no ability to choose. What if you don't care about certain debuffs, like debuffs that, for example, mobs often put on players, like slowed by 10%, or damage increased by 10%, things that you don't care about. As long as you don't have the ability to manually choose to get rid of them, it's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be very, very poor. They even said here they are adding the support to display when a player has a major defensive or similar ability active, right? Which is cool, right? This is cool. This is fine. It's relevant. Obviously, you have no ability to filter them, but being major defensives, it's less likely you will get to see useless abilities if they are major defensives. The bigger problem is still the ability to filter things you want to see or not want to see. I'm not even trying to be super niche and demanding with my requests, like my own UI, like for example wanting redo, the same way I also have things like reversion or things like atonement to be an overlay on the health bar and then decrease over time, or for my redo to be a bar, a thin bar at the top of the frame. For that, or for my atonement, for example, to be a thin bar, or even change the background color of my health. Like we have here in the example, I don't want the health bar to be black, I want it to be red, or dark red, for example. These things are even extra. I'm even stopping at the base, the most base thing, which is wanting whitelist, blacklist, and the ability to just choose what you want to see. So as long as that is missing, this is still gonna be terrible. Very, very poor as a frame for both the Raid and Mythic Plus in terms of customization for your UI. And still, I'm still gonna complain about the fact that this is still too late. As we said in this very video, the beta is closed, and this will presumably launch in the stage 5, week 5 of the alpha, so right before the beta. And that's when we get this, when this should have been iterated on, worked on, and developed like 5 months ago minimum. Instead, that this is when we get this in the alpha of Midnight, so it's still late for something of this importance to come out for testing. But we will see, with not too much hope for this one in particular, how this will develop throughout the, at this point, very short remaining time of the alpha and then the beta of Midnight, alongside obviously the enemy change, the meta of the mob change in Mythic Plus in particular, now being paired together with the removal of the interrupts for the healers. We left the macro changes for today. Yesterday we had the micro changes of the spec and class tuning, spec and class changes. Now we had the game-wide changing things like the UI changes, the mob changes, etc, etc, for today on this Saturday. And now, of course, like it often happens for this, what is left is to wait any further developments in the alpha and then beta of Midnight. But for now, on this Saturday, it is now time to leave each other once more. We are starting the goodbyes, as usual, by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who has been supporting Competi for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, what are all these fruit flies coming from with the window closed? Where are they